Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this demonstration of Get Help to Retrain. My name is Nick Trower. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor in the CBI's Education and Skills Policy team. Joined with me today is Ian Murray from the TUC and Michael Carney from the Department for Education. They will introduce themselves in a moment. So we're here to talk about Get Help to Retrain. This is the first part of the National Retraining Scheme offer, which has just been launched in the Liverpool City region. So this demonstration is coinciding with broader communication about Get Help to Retrain. So that's been in national press and beyond. So hopefully you've seen that, and this demonstration can give a bit more detail around what was announced. Before I hand over to Ian and then Michael, who will be leading most of the demonstration, just wanted to say a few words on behalf of the CBI. Firstly, we're obviously very pleased to see the first part of the schemes taking shape. We joined the partnership back in 2017 in recognition of the huge skill shortages associated with the changing nature of work and also technological change that's impacting work. So the scheme is definitely a timely intervention for us. In the first instance, we believe it's important that the hard-to-reach learners are prioritised for support, so that these are the kind of workers that are low, medium skilled and are likely to be vulnerable to changes in the workplace. The needs of these individuals are often quite complex and diverse, so it's positive to see that the department and the government more broadly spending the first part of the first few years researching these demands and building the scheme around them. As it develops further, we're quite keen to ensure the scheme complements and doesn't complicate employer training and development and make sure that it fits in with that. Also keen to ensure that the way that the workers are transitioning and learning, that fits with what employers are already doing in this space. So there's clearly loads of work to be done on the scheme, and we'd obviously want the progress to continue at a good pace, but at the same time recognising that this is a huge challenge and will need to be developed iteratively and shouldn't be rushed. And more broadly as well, we think the scheme and the partnership is a really good starting point for a wider conversation around lifelong learning, and hopefully the success of the scheme will push on that national conversation so that we can develop a so-called culture of lifelong learning. So I'm going to hand over to Ian now so he can say some thoughts on behalf of the TUC.
Thanks, Nick. Just to clarify, I'm a senior policy officer at the TUC, leading on learning and skills. I'm also based in Union Learn, which is the part of the TUC that works with the unions to support people to develop their skills at work. A major aspect of what we do at Union Learn is to support the role of union learning reps, who are specialist union reps in the workplace, who are very much focused on supporting workers to access learning skills, to develop their jobs and to develop their wider kind of potential. In respect to retraining, the TUC has been calling for more training opportunities for adults for a number of years, but we believe the need for retraining has become much more urgent in recent years. The jobs market is rapidly changing, especially as a result of automation and other major developments. We need to prepare people for these challenges, and we need to empower them to retrain for the jobs of the future. So the launch of the National Retraining Scheme and the initial offer, which is the Get Help to Retrain digital platform, is certainly a welcome start that we are very, very much welcome. It will develop a new offer for workers needing to upskill or retrain in what is becoming a much more challenging labour market. We've also welcomed the partnership approach to developing the scheme. You know, it's really good that sort of TUC and CBI have been involved from day one at the request of the government. We believe that this will ensure that as the scheme is sort of developed and rolled out, it will better meet the needs of employees and workers from day one. And hopefully it'll also mean that the programme, as it is delivered, will be delivered more effectively as it is rolled out. We are certain that union learning reps will play a key role in supporting people to use the service, and especially those who might lack the confidence to access it without help. Union learning reps are sort of pivotal in sort of engaging adult employees who maybe have had a tough time at school, have left without qualifications, and some of them are the ones who are most in need of sort of taking up these opportunities. We'll be working closely with all other affiliated unions to make sure that their union learning reps are aware of the scheme as it is rolled out, and also that union learning reps are well equipped to help individuals to make the most of the range of services that will be available. So I'll finish there and I'll pass over to Michael.
Thank you for that, Ian. And Michael from Department for Education.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. So I'm Michael Carney. I'm the Policy Engagement Lead for the National Retrain Scheme in the Department for Education. And today I'm going to give a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what the National Retrain Scheme is, but then also look at the first product which we've now launched in the Liverpool City region, Get Help to Retrain. I think it's probably just worth, before all into that, is just to thank both Nick and Ian and their respective organisations for the support, not only in bringing together this webinar, but also for the continued support in terms of developing the National Retrain Scheme. I think from our department perspective, we found this approach to be really refreshing and also really useful in terms of making sure that the voices of workers and business are fed into the National Retrain Scheme. And I think we definitely look to see this sort of approach continue in the long term. So just to talk about before we move into the Get Help to Retrain, I thought it'd be useful just to provide a quick overview of what the National Retrain Scheme is, because I understand, for some people who are watching and listening to this today, this might be the first that they've heard about it in great detail. So I'll just give a quick overview of what the National Retrain Scheme is, who we're looking to target, why is it that we need it, and I'll just provide a bit more information around what Get Help to Retrain is. So the National Retrain Scheme was a key manifesto commitment that was first announced in the 2017 autumn budget, and this was aimed at how we can help those individuals whose jobs are at risk of future change to the economy, which will therefore then change or become less in demand, to give them the new skills to be able to move into a new, better job. And as I've already mentioned, how we're developing the National Retrain Scheme is quite unique in two ways. Firstly, through the partnership approach that we're taking, but secondly, we're also taking a user-centred test and learn approach to developing the scheme. And so what does that mean in practice? That means going out to our users, so going out to adults, going out to employers and to providers and asking them what is it that they need from a retraining programme. And then using those findings to be able to start to develop assumptions and prototypes, which we then go back to those user groups and to continue to test and iterate those products and improve on previous versions. And part of that is due to, really wanting to put the heart of users put the voices at the heart of the development of the scheme, but then also looking to learn the lessons of previous retraining programmes. So moving away from big bang launches of full schemes, but instead very much starting small and iterating as we progress. And so then in the previous autumn budget in 2018, the Chancellor announced a £100 million initial commitment, and that was to continue to test and develop the National Retrain Scheme, but also to start the rollout of the first products of the National Retrain Scheme, which we've now done in the Liverpool City region with Get Help to Retrain. And so why is it that we need the National Retrain Scheme? So even though there's quite a lot of uncertainty, I think we can all agree on that the world of work is changing, whether that be through technological change, longer working lives. But I think in particular, we would like to focus on the impact that automation could bring within the workplace. And we understand that will bring a lot of opportunities, of which the National Retrain Scheme certainly needs to tap into and be able to move those individuals into those opportunities. But we also recognise that it could cause some impact in terms of from some of the studies that we've seen. So they've suggested that potentially up to 35% of jobs are at risk of automation over the next 20 years. But as I've mentioned, there is quite a lot of uncertainty around this. But what we need to make sure that we do is that we really focus on those individuals who are most at risk, and then be able to give them the new skills to be able to move away from those occupations and move into where those opportunities and where those jobs may be going forwards. And so, using the user research that we found to date and also the findings from the pilots that we're conducting, we've been able to bring together a vision of what the scheme could look like. And it's probably worth stressing that this is what it could look like, because using the iterative approach, if I was to give this presentation in 6 to 12 months' time, then this will likely change, and that's not a bad thing. I think it goes to show that, we are looking to improve the service and really take on board the feedback that we receive. And so, starting at the top, we have our different user groups, and as Ian mentioned, the users that we're looking at are going to have different levels of willingness to engage in training or awareness of the need to re-engage in training. And so, in particular, with that user group, we're looking at adults aged 24 and above who are in work, have a qualification below degree level, and we're testing the use of a wage threshold to focus on those earning low to medium wages. And again, that is in particular looking at those jobs that are likely to be at risk of change to the economy. And so we see engaging with those users as a key challenge to getting them engaged with the National Retraining Scheme. And so to do that, we're looking at a number of different marketing and behavioural change approaches to really engage with our users and show them the benefits of what training could be. But alongside that, we're also looking to see how we can complement and not duplicate current government services. So, for example, how could we use DWP services such as job centres and universal credit to help refer people into the service? But then I think, importantly, also using the presence that union reps and employers have within the workplace. And again, as Ian and Nick have both mentioned, I think the presence that they have will be a far stronger voice than potentially a voice that will come from outside and from government. And so once we've engaged using the scheme, the first product that they'd see is a supported digital service that will allow them to assess their skills and find local training and job opportunities within their area. And so this is the Get Help to Retrain product, which I'm going to focus on further on in this presentation. But those training opportunities will signpost towards initial existing training opportunities in the local area, and they'll be funded through the adult education budget. And we're looking to focus on short duration functional skills training within this. So looking at some of the key blockers that employers tell us are for our users going through the application process. So, for example, looking at basic English and math skills. But as I've mentioned, in terms of the user group that we're looking at, considering that they're going to be in work, we also need to take into account that they're going to need some added flexibility to be able to take part in this training. And to do that, we're looking to develop an online training offer, which will allow people to do training within their own time, in their own home, and that should then therefore help assist them with taking on this training. And as I mentioned, we'll look to focus this initially on functional skills, but we're also looking at using the testing that we've done to date, whether we can look at other skills such as either expanded functional skills or behavioural skills. And so, again, if we look at the cohort of users that we're looking to focus at, these are some people who may never have undergone an interview or have done a CV, and they may have been in the same job for 20, 30 years. And so that's why we really need to support them in terms of helping and finding and applying for these jobs. And that's why we're working with the National Career Service to really optimise that support for our user group. And then the last stage is around, working with employers to understand what opportunities are available to our cohort of users. And for some of the people that we're working with, they might need to undergo some technical skills training, because if they're moving from one occupation to another, those skills may not already be present. And to do that, we need to work with employers to understand what the technical training offer of the scheme could look like. And for quite a lot of that offer, that could be through an apprenticeship, but we understand that might not be the most appropriate option for some of our users, due to the fact that the length of time that they've said already, or the experience that they have, or whether the role that they're looking to move into may not require a long 12 to 2 to 3 year programme. And so that's why we're looking at whether a shortened, flexible alternative that will sit alongside the apprenticeship programme, whether there's appetite for that. And that's something that we'd like to continue to engage with employers alongside the CBI with. And so all these products are being developed in parallel and being tested and released at different times. And we'll continue to iterate each product and then look to bring these all together to form a complete end-to-end service. And so, as I mentioned, we've now released the first product, Get Help You Train, to a small number of invited users within the Liverpool City region. And so within this slide, it just gives an overview of what is it that Get Help You Train will help our users with. And so some of the things that will help them with is let them understand their existing skills, but also understand what jobs they could do within their local area. And as I've previously mentioned, for some of the individuals who are going through the service, they may need some extra training to fill some of the skills gaps that they may have. And so as part of that, the Get Help You Train will allow them to find existing training courses for them to look at addressing some of those skills gaps. But then there will also be support on offer through a National Careers Service advisor to support them with signing up for this training, but also motivating them and helping them through the training and the next steps. And as I mentioned, we're very much starting small with this product. On day one, it will have fairly basic functionality, but as we continue to test this with more and more people, we'll be then able to add more and more functionality to more users across the country, and that ensures that it effectively meets the needs of the people who need to use it. And so in terms of our next steps for Get Help You Train, we have it's now rolled out into the Liverpool City region, but we're conscious that Get Help You Train needs to work for all our users, and whether that be in different geographies or labour market or devolution contexts, because even though it's a national train scheme, we need to ensure that this works in our local area. So what works in Liverpool may be different to what works, say, in London or in Newcastle. And so that's why we need to work with local partners to ensure that it effectively meets the needs of the people who are going to use the service. And so that is why we're looking to roll out Get Help You Train to 5 or 6 areas throughout this year, before then looking to make this available to all eligible adults across England from next year, 2020. And this will help us to understand local organisations' views of how the National Train Scheme and Get Help You Train can work. And it will also help us to understand how it might be best to communicate with the people who will use it. So, individuals, employers and training providers. And as I mentioned, it makes sure that it will work within that local context. And so that's a quick overview of Get Help You Train. I'll pass over to Nick, who will look to finish the end of part 1 of this webinar.
Thank you, Michael. As Michael said, that concludes the first part. We've done a bit of a run through about what the National Retraining Scheme is and Get Help to Retrain, but do head over to the second part where Michael will be doing a product demonstration of Get Help to Retrain. So if you want to see what that will look like, at least in its first form, then do have a look at that, and you'll also be able to see perhaps where it can develop. So that will be closely located, hopefully, next to this video on whatever platform you're viewing. So thank you, Michael, again, for taking time to go through this. Thank you for Ian for coming in and for your thoughts. If there are any follow-up questions on today, please contact any of us. Hopefully our email addresses are showing on the slide now, because we are always inviting views on this. As Michael said, this is, we're continuing to test ideas, so all are welcome. And thank you all for listening.